Heads up. Everybody have a seat. Bookstore will be open after the meeting. Okay, hey, welcome to our August meeting. Our clinic today is going to be, hey guys in the back, our clinic today is going to be pulpwood operations and lumber operations in East Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas. It's going to be put on by Jim Ogden. Hold on. Hey guys, we need your attention up here, and everybody have a seat. Ryan. Okay. Joe Lysing was supposed to be going to put on the clinic, but he had a death in the family, so he was going to do a convention preview. So Jim has jumped in to pull together a presentation that I think everybody will enjoy. David Crumpton. David, thank you very much for the use of the Texas Western. Do you have anything to say?
You're very welcome. Welcome to the Texas Western again. It's good to have you here. Anybody here for the first time? Okay. All right, you're here for the first time. Before you leave, make sure you go around and look at our layout. If you have any questions, please let us know. When you see somebody with a red hat on like this, it's a good chance they're a member of the club. So they should know. They should know the answers to your questions, but we're glad you're here. Welcome, and Dick, it's all yours.
Okay. As many of you have noticed already, that we've got a large number of hardcover and paper-bound books on the back table. Those were donated to Division 1, and we're selling them after the meeting. They were donated by Steve Olson, who is the owner of, or the president of the Clifton Railroad Museum in Clifton, Texas. After we make a sale of these books for D1, what's left, we're going to donate to Texas Western, and they'll sell probably at a Plano trade show or something like that. Cost of the books are, the hardcover books are $10 a piece, 3 for $25. The softcover or paperback bound books are $5 a piece, 3 for $15. No, 3 for $10. 3 for $10.
That's a bargain, $5.
Yeah, it's a bargain. 3 for $15. So please, after the meeting or during the break, take a look at it. Take a look at the library. David Grind's taking the money. Obviously, all the money goes into the bank account of D1, and we certainly can use it. The other thing I wanted to make sure everybody knew is that we have another open house at the end of this meeting. Another member has volunteered to open up his house to the members here at the meeting. I'll give you the address at the end of our meeting today. I want to thank John Garfield for having an open house last month. It was very successful, and I'll mention too that Mike Ross had an open house in the month earlier, and we had a lot of people show up for that. In order to keep this going, I need members to step up and volunteer to have open houses. Right now, I've got September, October, and November open. So I would please see me after the meeting if you want to open up your layout to visitors. It's a very successful program, and I think the membership really enjoys it. Speaking of volunteers, opening up for volunteering for things. David, do you still need volunteers for the convention?
Right now, we're good.
Okay.
You're good.
I could use one more volunteer to help me out at the banquet on Saturday. I got you. I've got David Bryan and a number of other people included in the list, but I need one more just to be sure. So if you're going to be at the convention on Saturday, I would appreciate, all you got to do is help pull tickets or get tickets at the convention. It's pretty easy.
I had one member who had a heart attack. He can't help us probably. So I probably could use one more for tours.
Okay, so John Garfield needs tours to volunteer for tours. Anybody interested? Banquet, thank you.
Bruce.
Bruce, okay, Bruce, I'll get with you after the meeting and give you some details. Appreciate it. Okay, let's go into some other announcements. As you know, the Texas Express is coming up in about a week. And thank God, because I'm getting tired of talking about it. But it'll start at Baylor, Texas. And I was in a meeting on it the other day. And as of last Sunday, we had 890 people register. And they're expecting another 100, 125 people to register the day of the convention. So it looks like we're going to have a very big crowd.
Got at least 2 right here.
Do what?
Got at least 2 right here that will register.
Well, there you go. Don't wait till the last minute, okay?
That gives more money to y'all.
There you go. Appreciate that.
You know where to go.
I do
Yes.
have a question. I'm registered for the convention, but on Saturday I'd like to bring my small kids. Do I have to register them ahead of time, or can I pay at the door for my children?
I would think you pay at the door. In fact, depending on the ages.
Want to show, or you actually take them to clinics?
Yeah.
They would just go to the show.
Then you just pay for the show, entry to the show.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Very good. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, David Grind.
Yes,
Can you give a treasurer's report?
I can. Give a treasurer's report. My phone comes up, if I get the right numbers, don't wanna lie. Ah, crap.
Nice no lie.
All right. Yeah, right, okay. We have, our balance is $2,977.23. The bank says we have $2,977.23.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I took a lot of work for me to get it that way.
Yeah, only you, right? Okay, thank you. Also, I'd like to have new members. I know we got at least one new member or visitor. Please stand up and introduce yourself.
Mark Wilson, new member, I guess. I just actually joined the National because of the show coming up in Gaylord. So I've always been a train buff. My dad was a train buff, so I'm here.
So, Mark, where do you live?
I'm down in Cleburne.
Cleveland. Okay, good. Good. Thanks for coming up. What scale do you have? What scale do you model in?
Okay, I have set up now my O scale trains. I have the trains my dad had from the 40s and 50s, plus mine. So my better half was generous enough to give me the living room. So the living room is now a full size. I also have a lot of HO stuff from when my kids were growing up, but it's all in boxes. So I don't know if I'll ever get that set up again, but the O scale I'm enjoying.
Well, you know, we meet here the second Saturday of every month. So we always have a clinic. We have a great group of people there. So there's a lot of experts here that can help you with your modeling if you need some help. And you're always welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Can we get them to do a clinic on how to get the living room?
Good luck.
How do you find, that's like finding a unicorn.
That would be a well-attended clinic.
Yes.
Okay, any other new members or visitors? Yes, sir.
My name is Juan Alvarez. I do HO. I just started my layout, so I think I will make good use of the game.
Is it in your living room?
No, it will be on the playroom. But
Where is that? Forget about it then, we're not interested. Playroom.
Where do you live?
in Flower Mound.
Flower Mound, okay.
Welcome.
Very good, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, and our Zoom members, we have Betty Mitchell on Zoom, Robert Mangrum. Well, they can't hear me yet, can they?
Yeah, they can.
Okay. Who else do we have, David?
Robert Mangum, Stephen McGrath, Don Hummel,
Stephen, Don, thank you. Well, thank you.
Brady.
And Brady. Brady, glad to hear see you're attending.
Thanks.
Did Grind talk you into that?
I did.
Very good. Welcome, Don. Okay. So a couple announcements. As I mentioned, the Texas Express is coming up in a week. And it also includes the National Train Show, which will have a lot of manufacturers and there, and it's well worthwhile to attend the train show. And of course, if you've registered for the convention, it's already included into your registration fee. Bruce?
Does that pass, if you buy a one-day pass for the convention, does that include all 3 days of the train show or just one?
I'm not sure on that. Anybody comment on that? Jeff?
Yeah, you can put Friday, Saturday, or Sunday pass will be fine.
Okay.
I have a question about the train show.
Yes.
I registered for Saturday, but I can't print out a receipt if my printer's dead. Do I have to get a receipt to show up at the door? Do I need the receipt?
They should have a list of everybody. You don't need to see.
For Saturday's train show and clinic, or and convention.
His badge should be ready, available when he goes into the registration. It's supposed to be.
Yeah, your badge should be ready when you go in there on Saturday.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
If nothing else, take a picture of it with your phone.
Well, that's an idea. I didn't think of that. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions? Okay. So also in the region, we got the Temple Train Show coming up in mid-September. Don't forget about that. And that's at the Temple, Mayborn Convention Center.
Same place we had the LSI.
Yep. So that'll be a good show. And then, of course, we have the Plano Train Show coming up at the Plano Event Center, and that's in the September, early October 1st. So September 30th, October 1st. So those are the upcoming shows. Let's see what else we got. Okay, I'll tell you what, you wanna, let's go into some awards and AP talk. Dwayne?
Okay. We did not have anything back to present this month. I've got some paperwork that will be going up. And we've got some stuff I think we're going to judge later today. To bring your stuff, John?
Yes,
excellent. So we'll have some stuff to look at. Each month this year, we've been talking about different aspects of the achievement program. And one of the ones I want to touch on, and I don't think we've done this one yet. I'm sorry, I've forgotten my order of things. Is prototype modeler. Prototype modeler is a neat one. It's the newest category that you can get, and you've got to recreate a scene. And where a lot of people tend to get wrapped around the axle on it and think they can't build something is they get this thing in their head that it's got to be everything in one picture, and that's not true. You can have a whole series of pictures of the scene and build the model based off of that. There's also a little bit of leeway. When I say leeway, I mean a little bit. Let's say you're modeling the Southern, and you're modeling town B on the Southern. And one of the requirements is that you either have some sort of caboose or some sort of passenger car in there. Well, you know the Southern ran their passenger train from town A to town Z, so you know at one point it went through town B. You can find a picture of it in town A, you can find a picture of it in town C, you just can't find it in town B. Throw those two pictures in, it makes logical sense, because the only other place it can go to get from A to C is to go right through your scene. So there's a little bit of leeway you can get on that. But it's actually a fairly easy one to do, and I want to make a pitch, and some of you have heard me do this before. If you have not started in the achievement program and you've got some interest in learning your MMR, start with prototype modeling, and I'll tell you why. If you pick the right scene, there are so many things that overlap into the other categories, okay? And I came up with this helping my nephew out, and he had been working with my dad when Dad was a national AP guy, and had gotten his volunteer out of the way, and he had just finished cars. And he's asked me, said, what do you think I ought to work on next? And this is when this idea came up to me. So I told him, I said, all right, let's go down to Dad's basement, and why don't you talk to Dad about building something over here in this corner? Because he started way over here, and the basement ran underneath their entire house. So his train room was huge. And so talk to Dad and see if he'll let you have some space over here. And let's pick you a scene that will give you 32 square feet of scenery, because now you can get scenery on top of prototype. prototype modelers. Now we're at 2. All the structures you build into it can go towards structures. And the idea we came up with, because God bless him, my nephew's going to be another narrow gauge guy. We picked Rico, Colorado on the Rio Grande Southern. It was a division point, so they had a big yard there. I said, okay, so if we pick Rico, we've got enough room here that you can get your 32 square feet of scenery. I said, we're also going to be able to get you your 50 feet of linear track. You're going to need an HON3 to get civil. So by the time you run some main line in, some main line out, and all the yard tracks, you'll have your 50 feet. They've also got turnouts, crossovers, a 3-way stub, and start rattling off all these different track components that were in there. I said, so now let's step back and take a head count here. You're at prototype modeler, scenery, civil, and you're going to have to wire it, show that it works, so electrical. Now you're at 4. All the structures that go into that scene, there's the depot, the water tank, the coal pocket, the Propatria mill had a couple of buildings in there, but let's do that. Atlantic Mining Cable had a pair of buildings there. The engine house, you're at 7, and I've just hit some of the bigger structures. There was a little bridge that was on the tail track of the Y, so there's your bridge component. Now we're at 8 structures, and we haven't even started talking about the town building. So now you can get structures. So now we're at prototype modeler, civil, electrical, scenery, and structures. You're down at 5. And you've got stuff out of 2 of the categories out of the 4. So he already had cars, but if he didn't have cars, said scratch build some cars and throw that into the scene. Now you're at 6, and you've got 3 of the 4 categories. Build you a website about it and put that out there. Start writing articles and submit them to your regional newsletters, things like that, and start working towards author. Give them in clinics up here at meetings like this. Now you're at 7 off of 1 project, and you're a master model railroad. Pat Harriman didn't go this exact route, but he was the national AP guy before my dad had the job. Pat went from new member and no layout to MMR in 9 months.
Whoa, wow. Whoa, wow.
Recently retired architect and had nothing else better to do but play trains all day long. Man, wouldn't that be nice? But at any rate, it's something that's achievable. And it's something that if you really hadn't thought about something, I mean, I'm a freelance guy. So is Robbie and so was my dad. But I built the north end of Chalma Yard for mine. And it's, it's nothing I'm going to put on the layout because I built it in snow up about yay high, but it makes for a neat little display. But give it some thought. If you've got any questions, please get with me. Let me know. Sir?
What is the minimum requirement just for prototype model?
There isn't. Not, they talk about size? There's a handful of requirements. It's got to have a couple of railroad structures. I have to look it up to get the exact requirements on it. You got to have a couple of railroad structures. There's got to be a passenger car or a caboose. There's, again, David, I'm sorry, I'd have to pull it up on my phone and go over it. There's not that many requirements. There's no size requirement. It doesn't have to be X by X kind of thing.
The structures have to match the.
Yes, and that's the thing. And that's we've had a couple people throw out questions like, well, can I do this and do it inspired by? No. This is prototype modeler. This is your chance to recreate the prototype. I mean, Jim built the Argo Mill. If you've ever seen that up in Colorado, that thing is huge, and so's his model. It's one of those things where you've got to pick the right subject material and make sure it's got enough of the structures in it. I mean, you might be able to if the town was like a little whistle stop and there really wasn't that much there. The question is going to be is there enough railroad structures to meet the qualification? But does it mean if you decide you're going to build the city of West Texas, do I have to build the entire city block and put the depot in it and put the trains running? No.
You blow it up.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Show the remnants of it after the explosion. Yeah, but yeah, it's down to just what you want to do. And again, it's something that even if you're a freelance guy, you can always go back in and put a new sign on that depot and rename it after you've got it done. So there's a lot of options in there, and I really do give it's the least given certificate of all 13, or all 11, and I just invented 2 new categories in the achievement program. I didn't know it. It is the least given over the years, and a part of that's because it's the newest. But even since it's come along, I know we're running some stats again back when Dad was the national guy. running some stats for him and things, it was still given out fewer times than anything else. So it's, but it is one that really ought to think about because there's so much overlap. I mean, we're going to talk about civil and electrical coming up here in the coming months, and you just heard me say it like it's one category, but it's really two. And there are different requirements to them. Now, when we go talk about them, because we're going to be running out of time toward the end of the year, I'm going to talk to them like it's one deal. And the reason I say that is the requirements for them overlap quite a bit. And we'll get into that here in a couple of months. But really give prototype a good thought because there's a lot of ground you can gain in a lot of other places based off of just earning that one certificate. So, we will have Mr. Crumpton as his car certificate will be up at National. We had a little bit of a boo-boo somewhere along the way, and my report this last month did not make it to National for some reason. So he's got his out there. We also have a new MMR over in Division 3, Mr. Tom Greco. You guys have seen him at the train shows. Plays guitar around the lunch area up there. Tom earned his last certificate last month and has submitted his paperwork for MMR. So we've got a new one in Lone Star region.
Very good.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And Mr. Crumpton?
Yes, sir.
This is number 6 for you.
Yes, it is.
What's the game plan for number 7?
Dispatcher, bank dispatcher.
Well, I know you're here because you need a break because we got the convention coming up, but after the break's over,
I'm hitting it hard.
yeah, we better be running trains, brother.
Yes.
Have you got any hours on that yet?
Yeah, quite a few. Most of it's at Mackey's house.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thank goodness for somebody that has a nice layout and lets you do stuff on.
Yeah, and there's several guys in the area that are really happy about letting you come over and dispatch or at least come over and run trains and stuff to that effect to get your hours in. So, and we'll talk to that one in a couple of months as well, but that is easily the most fun one you'll get because it's a chance to play on your railroad or someone else's.
No more judging.
Yeah, exactly. Don't have to go, no, crap, I got to talk to Dwayne about this one. Yeah. That's all I've got.
Okay, Dwayne, thank you.
If anybody's got
Thank you
any
very much.
questions, let me know. I'm always here.
Okay, let's, now we have a question and answer period. You know, I want to have, anybody's having problems with something on their layout that they need some help with. David Grind.
Ballasted bridge are there guardrails?
Come again?
Ballasted bridge,
Okay.
guardrails or no?
Guardrails on every bridge.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure there's a prototype out there that didn't for one reason or another, but, you know, railroads are notorious for not caring about the health and safety of their workers, so, you know.
I've seen a lot of modern bridges without guardrails.
Really?
Good ones, yeah. They want to rate 20
No kidding.
Wow.
Until the first derailment.
So,
They're usually well railed.
True.
Stress over the bridge.
Yeah.
So the
Likelihood is a lot
Take
less.
pictures.
Yeah.
Okay, how about other questions?
Yes.
So I'm Chris. So I'm building a 3-level freelance HO layout. Almost probably like 99% done with the staging level bench work. This is in a nicer room that's in my house, but of course, the floor slopes. Okay, so it's supposed to be 20 inches. The main level is supposed to be 20 inches above staging. Problem is, and I have a laser level that shoots the line on the wall. Because the floor goes like this, I guess what I'm asking is, where do I split the difference? And because I can't get 20 inches on the north side of the room because it's going to be higher on the other side of the room. So when I start building the main level with my brackets on the wall, what do I do with that?
Set your laser level on the highest end of the room and let that shine your line around the room and build to the line.
So go to the highest point and just use that.
but just, I think.
What kind of a grade are you gonna have on the staging?
Like at the bottom.
I don't want any grade on the staging level.
Why didn't you adjust that to be level so that the legs, I'm presuming it's standing on the floor?
It is. I do have adjustable feet, but even if I adjust it, I'm still gonna have something like this when I adjust the legs.
You should, because you're only gonna adjust the legs on the downhill end.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bring all the rest of the layout up to the highest point.
I'll show you some pictures, Dwayne.
Yeah.
I mean, like, think about a garage. Garage always slants. And so on the low end side, you make it taller than you do on the high end side, so you get it level all the way across.
The problem I have is, and I don't think I can undo this now, is the north side of the wall, or the north side of the room is on the wall, and I've affixed either 2x2 or 2x4 studs to the wall, lag bolted into the finished sheetrock.
Right.
So that part of the staging level, I've actually screwed into that.
Yeah, they have to take that loose and pull that right out.
That's the
Level it
low
out.
side.
Yeah. Yeah, that's gonna be the only way to do it. You have to take the anchors out and then level it out and then redo the anchors.
How much difference in elevation from one end to the other?
It's probably a 1/4 inch.
Could you stack something on top of your ledger?
I considered doing that.
And if you're only talking a 1/4 inch, that's something that's very easily done as well.
Yeah, we're not
You can come
talking
back
like an
in-
inch.
Yeah, you can come back in and shim it down on the low end. And because if you've got legs and everything, and then like an L girder or a T girder, then you've got your module basically sitting on top of that, you can put a shim in between the leg set and the module and elevate it that way.
I'll show you some pictures and then I'll.
Yeah, catch me on break.
Okay, any other questions? Yeah, in the back of the room.
I'm looking at some old pictures here yesterday, I guess it was, and noticed that, I know that we see cars out on the rails nowadays that have, like UTLX, GATX cars. X, at the end of that, my understanding is that those cars do not belong to that railroad, they belong to another company.
Yeah, they're leased.
That's a lease or whatever to it. But what is it when you see an X and then the car number on one of these? Those look to me like the older cars, maybe that were not able to go out on the main line.
Those are maintenance away, accident.
Are those maintenance away?
Yes.
Okay, so the X before the number?
Yes. They're not in the range.
Company service, not necessarily maintenance. Service. And they will stay on all rails. Thanks.
Okay, good question. How about anything else? Yes, sir.
I need to get with somebody on a reverse loop to get it wired up properly. I have a DB210, and I have a DCS 100 that on digit tracks that I want to put together for the reverse loop. But I just need somebody that knows a little bit more how to wire that.
That Digitrax AR1 is one of the best auto reversers I've ever seen. It's simple to wire in, you gap the rails and wire it like the instructions tell you, and it works like a champ. You can even dial in the sensitivity of it.
You talking about the AR1? Okay.
Some DCC systems have auto reversers built into them now.
Well, see, that thing is, the DB210 has a switch for an auto reverse. But I do have a DCS 100 that I haven't talked to Digitrax until I don't want to sound like I don't know what I'm doing. But, you know, they say put this unit with this unit, and I'm not going to go out and buy another unit. I want to try to see if I can use what I have. And so when I get that time, I just need to know somebody good on electrical.
Tom Pearson, you gotta ask.
Huh?
Tom Pearson back there, you gotta ask.
All right.
Yeah. Tom? Where's Tom at? I know he's here. Yeah, we got a Digitrack expert back there. His name's Tom Pearson. And Dave, you got? Okay, hold on. Okay, so have we answered your question?
Yes, you did.
Okay, David Crumpton is
Yes.
next.
I've got a mystery, and with this group of people, I know somebody in here knows about this. I was talking to a doctor friend of mine who is a big historical buff about Arlington. He read somewhere or found out somewhere about between like Fielder Road going west back in the late 1800s or early 1900s, there was a derailment of a steamer that came off the track, went into a creek, and evidently they didn't have the means to pull it out. So it pretty much just sunk down in this creek and is in who knows how many feet of mud. They never recovered it. Does anybody know anything about that? It was a TNP steamer. What year roughly, Daryl?
1870s.
1870s, okay, TNP steamer.
The bell was recovered, wasn't it? Somebody recovered the bell.
So it was just, my assumption would be it was too heavy and they didn't have the means to lift it out, put it back on the track, is that right? Ken?
One of the history books of Fort Worth explains that it's there, they left it there.
Okay, yeah, he went to the historical center there in Arlington, right off of Filder Road, thinking that they would have a lot of information about it, and they didn't. So it's just been bugging the heck out of him, and he thought, hey, I'll ask David, because he knows all these experts. Thank you. I'll point him in the right direction now.
The other place.
Steel?
Well, they had no large equipment to be able to get it back out.
Do you know what the wheel configuration was?
I just found it on friendly Google.
462.
There was a gentleman who pestered the Mopac to go in there and look for it, and apparently without their permission, started excavating the area looking for it, and they ran him off. It was still on railroad property.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, it was a 440. I can send you the website.
Okay, great. Let me give you my email address after the meeting or during the break. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. David?
I bought an assembled walnut kit. It has a decal.
Hey, David, why don't you stand up so we can.
I bought an assembled walnut kit and it has a decal on the roof. And, like bolts, whatever. And I want to get rid of that to put up a custom sign. Is there any alternative other than sanding it off and repainting the roof?
Is it a decal or is it painted?
I assume it's a decal because it's golden flame and that's in all the kits of this type. So I'm
If it's a
assuming
decal, you can probably get it off with, alcohol or some of the others.
It looked, the building was lightly weathered, so there might have been dull coat put over this or something. Would that still get it off?
Well, you have to repeat it.
Yeah, I know I'm gonna have to repaint the roof. I'm trying to avoid sanding it off.
Yeah, I don't think so.
You might be able to pull it off with masking tape. I sure pulled a lot of stuff. Because of painting.
Yeah, you need the old school masking tape, not blue painter's tape. You need something with a lot of sticky.
Yeah.
If it's already been dull coated, yeah, you're gonna have to either go with something like brake fluid or pine sol or something like that, and let soap. Testers used to make some stuff, but.
Okay. Thank you, fellas. Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Gary?
I've got a Y, and each section is controlled by tortoises. And before I had it controlled just with 2 push buttons, so it would throw 2 tortoises to part of the Y or the other 2. For the life of me, I do not remember how I did it. I don't even remember what equipment I used. It may still be packed in a box somewhere. If anyone's got, I looked on the internet about how to wire it, where I could throw the 2 together, and push 1 button, 2 of the switches throw, push the other, and it aligns the other 2. So if anyone knows what to do there, please see me after the meeting. Okay, thanks, John, I appreciate that.
Okay, one more, Gary?
Yeah, I recently
Why
bought.
don't you stand up so everybody can hear you?
Yeah. So I need a product recommendation for something other than Starbond medium for like generic Walters plastic kit, because I'm on the beginning side of the hobby and I need a little bit more time to do things, and the Starbond is setting so quickly that is there something out there that could give me a little bit more working time so that my fat fingers could actually get this stuff done right and look good?
Starbond's a solvent?
Slow jet.
Yeah. Is it solvent or is it CA or what is it?
It's CA.
CA?
Slow jet. You get slow jet, Tamaya, however you want to pronounce it. They actually have a couple of different, one's an MEK, the other one's like an acetone base.
Okay.
and that's a real slow one. That'll give you a little more working time. You talk about bonding plastics and you want some more work time. Plain old Tester's model airplane glue does a really nice job. It makes a good
Like the little
joint.
tubes.
Yeah, the
we
little,
give kids.
yeah, the little
Okay.
orange and white tubes that you don't want to breathe very deeply. You can bond those together, or you might want to breathe very deeply. Just depends, you know how many brain cells you got to lose. But you can take that and bond it together. That'll give you a little bit of work time, so you can actually get them in a jig and square them up and stuff like that.
Perfect.
Ravel makes a glue like that too, but it comes in a blue bottle, and it's got a long narrow needle on it, which is very good.
Okay, it's good to know. I got some options then.
It's not messy, and I've used it for about a year now, and it's really great.
Okay.
And it does give you a lot of working time.
Hobbytown USA.
Yeah.
They'll have all kinds of different glues in there that you can pick from.
Perfect.
If you want a really long setting glue, Chester's came out with a citrus-based styrene cement.
Yeah.
And it seems to take like a day and a half to set up.
Okay.
Maybe too long.
Yeah.
Too long.
All right. I'll put a question mark on that one.
Yeah, I've used it in the past. It takes forever to set up, and I've had some questionable joints out of it. So
Yeah, it just takes me longer than it normally does because I'm,
There's also a material which is a thick glue that I use. There's Palmer Expert, Super Expert, believe it or not, it's like the old tube glue, but you got a hypodermic needle on the end.
Yeah. Okay.
And I used to think they were the same thing, and I found out the Super Expert actually will bond. I don't want to get too wonkish, but in polystyrene, there are different functional groups of one molecule, and the Super Expert will work on two different functional groups, whereas the Expert only does one, but it don't cost the same.
Any other questions? We good? Okay. One more thing I want to talk about before, well, we got tips and tricks. So Dwayne, you want to do that?
So, in talking with y'all before, I've mentioned that, right, with the HON3 annual. And my friend that's the editor of that one also is White River's book publisher, editor kind of thing. And how many of you guys remember 764 Helpful Hints? Bach wrote that thing back in like the early 60s. Well, I was talking to Chris about that one a couple of years back, and I said, it'd be nice. I realized Kalmbach did it, so we can't do a newer version of that one, 764 Helpful Hints redone or whatever. But what would you think about doing something along those same lines, but modernize it? Because that was a great old book back in the day. But if you go through it now, there's about 4 helpful hints in that still can be used today. Most of the stuff was, you can take this piece of styrene and this little thing here, and you can make a marker lamp for a caboose for less than $1. And it's like, yeah, but for $4, I can go buy 4 brass castings, and they look exactly like they're supposed to look like. So, we've come a long way in the hobby since then. So all these little tips and tricks I've been jotting down, and that's the start of my book. So I've got it detailed out, or I've got sectioned out by different categories, and we'll be working through this. But when Dick called, I wanted to know if I could give 1 or 2 today. I just grabbed the whole note stack and thought I'd bring them up. So let's talk about a little bit about details. One of the easiest details you can add to any structure are plumbing vents. And I know some of you guys have been at several of these meetings and heard me talk about these before, but it's the #1 thing that Jeff and I see that gets missed in structures, and it's the easiest of all the details and the cheapest, okay? When you go home tonight, look up on your roof, and you'll see a little pipe that sticks up maybe about yay far, and it has no cap on the top of it. That's the vent for your plumbing. Without it, your plumbing does not drain. So it's fun when you start seeing something pop up on the contest room table, and it's an apartment building, you're looking at that going, 15, 20 units in there, and not a flush toilet to be found, and no sinks. Isn't that nice? But you can do a lot of things for that. A little piece of styrene rod, drill a small little divot in the top of it, paint that black, paint the styrene rod a color of some sort. Typically those things are lined with lead, so they don't, usually don't get any kind of rusty colors, but tans and browns, things like that. Paint that up, a little bit of black in that little dimple, and poof, you have plumbing vents.
Shrink wrap tubing, same thing.
Yeah.
And then when you're stripping wire,
yeah,
the THN and 16 and 14 gauge tubes.
Yeah, save the insulation. Yeah, coffee stirring sticks if you're in some of the, or coffee stirring straws if you're in some of the bigger scales. Sir.
A few years ago, I had my roof redone, and I don't know if it was just an easy thing to sell or I just didn't know any better, but they said I had to replace all those beds because the squirrels were chewing the heck out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe you squirrel.
Yeah. Park a squirrel up in there. Yeah. Oh yeah. Another roof detail. And that's another little thing for tips and tricks. We spend the bulk of our time looking down onto our models. And model railroading is all about smoke and mirrors. That's why I've always told you, detail the stuff in the front, a little less in the middle, not very much in the back isn't really required. Now that is starting to change because of these. Because now people come over to your house and they go, oh, isn't that neat? And they stick their arm and their phone way out over your railroad, over there. You know, I saw a guy at an open house holding his phone like this out over this guy's railroad. And he's trying to reach out there and touch the shutter with his finger. And I'm like, dude, you drop that thing on that railroad, I'll hold you while he hits you. But because we're getting cameras getting stuck back in the background now, backsides of buildings that you never thought needed to be detailed, and now you might want to start giving that some thought. Details back in the back, man, now we might want to start putting a few more things back there because that smoke and mirrors thing is now gone because the optical viewing angle has now changed. So, food for thought. Talking about small stuff. Yes, sir.
Sign bar to the plumbing vents. You buy them at your Home Depot, your Lowe's, wherever. They're made out of sheet lead. You can slice them up. They're great for waiting cars.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, if you, and that truth be told, you want weights, go down to your local tire shop. Tell them you're a model railroader and you need some lead to weight some cars. They'll give you all you want. That and go and tell them you shoot black powder and then you'll grab a 5-gallon bucket. You're doing this out to your car to get it out there. But usually they'll give you all the lead you want. Talk about small coffee stirring straws for using for plumbing vents for like O scale. Small straws. If you find some that you start paying attention when you're going out and grabbing some fast food and things, because everybody gets their straws from slightly different places, or they get them customized. If you go to Whataburger, they're white and they've got an orange stripe, or go to McDonald's and they're white with a red stripe. And I don't care what color the stripe is. The difference is they're all different diameters. Smokestacks, chimney stacks, culverts, pipe loads. I mean, these, your options go on and on and on and on of all these things you can do with these. And over on my side of town, we have Ace Restaurant Supply, and I think they've got options over here on the Fort Worth side. But find a restaurant supply. You can go buy a box of straws for $3 or $4, right? Inflation, 15 or 20 bucks. And you can get them in there, and they make everything up. They make some big ones. You go to a boba tea place, you can get a straw that's about that big around, and those make really nice smokestacks. So, next time you're over someplace, grab you an extra straw or two. If you find some that you really like, there used to be a Mexican restaurant over off of Central that we used to go to before it closed up. And I was looking at the straws, and they weren't boba tea big, but they were bigger than everybody else's. And I asked her, I said, what restaurant supply do you get these things from? And she goes, I don't know why. So I told her, I do model trains, and these things would be great for all. It started rattling off all. She brought me about half a box, to go bag. She just walks and sits down and take that home. So, it always pays to ask. And that's another one I'm thinking about, it pays to ask. Next time you guys are going to the dentist, talk to the hygienist and ask her what she does after they're done with all the little dental tools and burrs and things like that, because they sterilize them and they pitch them. And if you tell them you're into model trains and you use the little probes and things for carving scenery and burrs for drilling holes and carving on stuff, most of the time they've either got some laying around they'll give you right there on the spot, or they'll at least start saving them for you. I went and talked to mine here recently, and she gave me a baggie about yay wide that was just bulging with burrs and stuff. And there's all kinds of neat things in that one, and they're too dull to drill teeth, but man, they'll drill through anything we need to drill through.
Brought up on one of the meetings about surgical equipment and stuff.
Yep.
When I went in for the hospital for my stroke, I asked the nurses, the doctors there, oh yeah, we'll be right back today. I mean, they literally brought me the truck.
Yeah.
Never told guys, so I'm kind of embarrassed.
Yeah, I'm telling you, they've got my aunt did this with my dad a couple of times. When they would go out, I don't know, her doctor's office specialized in, but they had a setup tray that they would bring out, and everything in it was one-time use. It wasn't plastic. These are metal instruments. But they weren't even bothered to sterilize them and reuse them. They came out, whatever was on the tray that got used, all of it went in the trash here regardless. So yeah, talk to your doctors. I mean, all kinds of little scissors and hemostats and all kinds of wild stuff. Yeah, you can get some neat stuff in there. And
Start losing the chrome off of them, you're not gonna wanna use it again. Everything you start losing the chrome on the outside.
oh yeah,
Time to throw them away when that happens.
yeah, exactly. And you can use hemostats and stuff for all sorts of things working on your railroad. They're great when you're wiring track drops and stuff, and you need a third hand in there. You reach over and clamp onto it with a hemostat, let it hold it together, and then solder your connection. Works out pretty nice. I'll leave you with one last one, and I want to bring this one up just because it's on the bizarre side a little bit. You guys remember eating alphabet soup as a kid? Yeah. Did you know you can go to the grocery store and you can buy a bag of pasta letters? A bag of pasta letters, you're going to have to hunt and peck through it, and you only get one size letter and you only get one font. But if you want 3D letters for a sign, you can buy a bag of pasta letters for less than $5. So have fun with that one. Okay.
And you can eat the leftovers.
There you go. There you go. Exactly.
Thank you, Dwayne. Go ahead, Case.
Potential tip and or trick.
Go ahead. What? Say it again.
I had a potential tip and or trick.
Go ahead. Sure.
I didn't want to cut you off before you moved into the next one.
All right, a couple of years ago, I guess it was now, we were talking about using 1156 automotive bulbs for circuit breaker, I guess, testers, is that what you would say? You know, if you ever get a short, the bulb will light up rather than popping a fuse. Many are probably familiar with that. Well, the other day, Casey and I, if you don't know, drive semi-trucks. We've got a 48-foot trailer, and one day during a light test, none of the marker lights were working. And I was like, oh my God, there's hundreds of feet of wire running through there and air hoses and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, this could take hours, days to track down where this short is. And then I remembered my training. The problem was every time I put a fuse in, it popped instantly. I could not walk around the truck and figure out, is one of these lights not working or what's the deal? So grabbed my soldering iron, found that this is actually an 1157 bulb. It's got 2 filaments, but the idea works the same. And I stuck these where the fuse goes. And instead of the fuse popping instantly, it would just light this bulb up. All the lights came on the trailer, except one. And that instantly told me where my problem was. I found the short, there was a wire touching the metal in there. Pretty cool. So model railroading saved my life.
Very good. It's amazing how many times you get to working on something and you go, oh, the Dremel would be perfect for this. And you go into the trailer and you're out there under the hood of your wife's Toyota.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that saved me quite a bit of time with headache. So, I mean, I didn't know if I'd ever need that tip or trick, but it worked for me.
Yeah.
So, if you didn't know you could do that, you can put these in line, and then if you get a short, this bulb will light up rather than popping a fuse.
Are you gonna retire from truck driving and set up a table at the pilot truck stop to help other truckers?
I'm selling these. Thank you, guys.
Okay, Cody, thank you very much.
See it now, you're walking to the next pilot truck stop with the Aiken short detector.
Okay, before we go into
$29.99.
Before we go into show and tell, I want to talk a little bit about the October. And Jim, you got that sheet?
All right, there is a brown leather bag.
Yeah.
The board is tan color.
This one right here?
Yeah.
Okay, Dwayne, you want to go talk about that a little bit more?
So we're going to talk about doing some sort of make and take. We hadn't done one in a while, and I had pitched the idea originally about doing the tree winding jig, and we didn't have a whole lot of seemingly interest in that one. But Dick suggested one. A few months back, I brought up a LCL freight dock that I was laser cutting. And he suggested maybe we look at building those. So in October, we're going to look at doing a make and take for that one. It'll be right here during our normal meeting. It'll be the clinic for that month. I will be laser cutting all of these, so we'll be doing some assembly and putting them together. We'll be making them available in scale, HO, S, and O. Sorry, G scalers, but your building and what the rest of us do for building are 2 different things. So it'd be a couple of different types of classes, because you'd be using wheel screws and real nuts and bolts and all that kind of stuff. These are pretty detailed. In fact, there's a couple of the ramp versions sitting over here now, not the ones I cut, but a very similar design at least. Mine have got more detail on them, but you know. In scale, we're looking at running about $10 a kit, and you'll get a straight dock and one that's half straight and half is a ramp. And those are set up so you can make them a T shape, you can make them an L shape, you can put them back to back, you can do pretty much whatever you want to with them, but you'll get basically the 2 docks. $10 for N, 15 for HO, and 20 for O.
What about S?
And S,
15?
you got anybody wants to do one in S?
17,
Figures you'd want to. I'll do that for 15 as well. It's not that much more material than an HO, and I'll use the same material for it. So, but anyway, we've got a sign up sheet going on over here. So
Yeah, we got a sign-up sheet going around.
And let me know your scale, and then we'll have them all cut and ready to go. What you'll need to put these together will be whatever adhesive you want to use for doing wood. For something like this, I would almost suggest, and normally I talk about using Aleene's tacky glue for a lot of things in wood. That is one of my personal favorites. However, for this, I would suggest you bring carpenter's glue, and preferably like a Type Bond 3 that's waterproof. Because these are going to be right down in the scenery as you're getting it wet and bonding it down. So I really would suggest you go with a watertight, waterproof carpenter's glue for putting this in together, or at least the bottom portion of it, and then you can do the rest of it with Aleene's if you want to. It's a quick build. This will be a one and done make and take meeting. Let's it all be done before we leave. They go together that quickly, and there's other options for additional detail you can add to them later. You don't have to actually build this part of the detail in. You can take it home and add this later if you want to. But yeah, it should be a fun little clinic. I've built several of these now. In fact, I think over here next to the feed mill there in the glass cabinet, there's a little yard office that I built to go along with it out of the leftovers from that kit. The deck that it's setting on is actually one of the straight ones, and I cut it in half as the prototype. I cut that in half and spun it around and then used that to prop the building up to get it up to car height. So if you're looking for an LCL dock, you could actually take this and attach it to the side of a building if you wanted to as well. So it's kind of up to you. Sir?
Suggestions for what tools, other
Yeah,
supplies we need?
yeah, no.
We'll get a list of tools out.
I'll get a tool list together, but it won't be much. All the parts and pieces are going to be cut out of solid wood, except for the end scale guys. You're getting yours out of plywood, out of 1/64 plywood, so it's thin enough so it actually looks to scale and not horribly oversized.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Just for you. But no, these go together real quick. I mean, it's literally you laminate 2 sides together, you pop the middle ones in between, you can put the deck on it. It's a real fast build, very highly detailed, but very fun. And it makes a great little scene on your railroad. Or again, it could be just a loading dock on a structure, however you want to play it.
That'll be October 8th.
That sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds
Saturday,
about right. Second
yeah.
Saturday in October, don't
Yeah.
know the date.
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
14th, okay.
September 30th.
Okay, so let's,
Yeah.
well, as the sign-up sheet's going around, we'll go into tips and tricks now. Or, excuse me, a show and tell. So,
Hey, real quick, could
Yeah.
you sign me up for that thing? HO scale.
Steve McGrath.
Steve McGrath.
Yep.
Okay.
I should be able to come in October. I think the weather will be nice then.
I wouldn't bet on it.
Right now, I can't breathe, so that's why I'm not up there.
National Weather Service came out today and said it's going to be 105 with a heat index of 113.
I can't breathe in that weather.
Yeah, they recommend you stay inside and stay hydrated between 11 in the morning until November 2nd. So,
Thanks, appreciate it.
yeah,
If you're lucky.
yeah.
Okay, so we'll go into show and tell, and we'll let's go, David.
I got one. Okay, high school buddy of mine gave me these. His brother gave them to him, his older brother. He worked for the Santa Fe in Temple for years. They are spikes, but they are little. What in the heck do these things use?
Got a number on the top?
There's no numbers. Down the shaft, there are little hashes down the side to like hold it into whatever you spike it into. Yeah, these are 20-pound rail. A 20-pound rail. Okay, looks like a regular spike on it, real small.
Yeah.
20-pound rail. Thanks,
Yep.
Jerry.
You see those in a lot of mining situations.
Okay.
You can make earrings out of those.
Sir? What do you say, Steve?
You can make earrings out of those.
Yes, yes, I thought about that. I didn't want my ears to droop, but I
Don't blame him, David.
All right, the other thing, right there on the table at the end of the stockyards, you see a lot of electrical stuff. We did some cleaning in the electrical room. If you're interested in those large spools of wire, make me an offer I can't refuse. The other stuff in boxes, it's free. Cable ties, all that other stuff in boxes, you take it. We don't want to see it again.
What gauge is the wire?
I don't
Check it
know.
out on the table.
Yeah, look at it on the table.
Let's move on. Let's show and tell. Okay, Gary, hold on. Let me, got one ahead of you. Russell?
Can I go first real
Sure,
quick?
go
'Cause I
ahead.
need to give this to Tom because he's
Go
my
ahead,
neighbor.
go ahead.
For those of you who've been to Mike's layout, a lot of the stuff on Mike's layout is stuff he's picked up along the way, structure-wise. He's had quite a bit of help working on the layout and stuff. And as Mike mentioned in his article, that the whole thing out here is a bit of a tribute to some of these guys who have gone before us. And I was telling him about I was given a depot off of Bill Freitag's layout, and Mike also got a structure too from Bill's layout. And I told him that I want to recreate that town to some degree because I was given the depot from Sierra Vista off of this layout. And I got the stock bins from back behind it, and I figured out what building it was that he kit bashed to make the furniture place next door to it. So I've started working on getting that one pulled together. But I want to try to recreate that town. And I told him, I said, I want to laser engrave a plaque for the fascia that says, this came off the Stony Creek in the Western, it was built by Bill Freitag, that kind of thing. And Mike thought that was a really neat idea and asked me if I could make up some signs for him. So up here, I've got some stuff I'm going to be sending with Mr. Pearson here to go over to Mike's place. So we advanced it a little bit. I'll start off with the tribute stuff. So as you can see here, we've got a pretty healthy stack of signs. So like this one is the Rio Grande office, built by Jim Norwood. Legacy Furniture, built by Leo Coletti. Montgomery Broom, built by Jack Kibbe, and so on and so on and so on. So all these buildings that are on his layout will now have a sign on the fascia underneath them as a honor or tribute to the guys who built them, which I thought was a really nice touch. Sir?
You want to show those under court?
Which one? Under here? Yeah. So like, that guy there? But I mean, he's got stuff in here. Here we go. Cool. So that's what they all pretty much look like. Here's Pat McCarthy, Leo Coletti. So all these buildings out here, and we may add a few more over time if he finds another one or two in here. We'll get a sign put on them. And then, like most railroads, you want a direction so folks know if the paperwork says go north, okay, what direction's north? Because north never ends up being north in your room. So we're gonna have another couple of them here. So I sat down and drew up a few options for him, and he picked that guy. So we've got north and south, east and west, and I think there's a south and north, yeah. So these will be up here giving directions, and then we also there's 3 locations that we wanted to call out just on their own, but they're not actually towns or anything. But there's Vale Yard, Tyler Industrial, and the Trinity River. But then in all of his areas where he has a station, we went through and looked at what the Cotton Belt had on theirs and used that kind of as a starting point. And then this will give you the distance back to St. Louis, which is where his headquarters are, the headwaters are for the railroad. The next town over and back to the other direction is Fort Worth. And then the next town over is Richardson, and it's out here supposedly that far. And then we've got those for each of the towns on his railroad. So we'll box these back up, and Mr. Tom, I've got these ready for you, sir. Okay.
Okay, anything else, Wayne?
No, sir.
Okay, Russell, you want to go through yours first? Sure.
You're making old man noises, you know that?
Well, I'm an old man out of myself. before we're done, everybody knows it's the Black Hill sign. We want to add automation, different things, animations and stuff. And one of the things that's there in South Dakota is called Iron Mountain. Iron Mountain's a great place to ride motorcycles up. There's like 140 turns and switchbacks and pigtails that go down. And one of the
Russ, we're gonna have to talk a little louder.
and one of the things that is really neat about it, when you go through, there's a lot of tunnels and it's bored straight through the granite. And when you make the turn, before you start going back down the mountain, you come to the tunnel, you get to see Mount Rushmore. It's got a frame of this tunnel, it's really cool. So we're building this. We built it once and I had to tear it apart because I just got a great idea. I want to animate it. So I was looking for different ways to animate vehicles. There's two systems that I found out there. One's the Faller system, and there's one called MagnaRail. The Faller system, I'd have to get a second mortgage to get it to do everything I wanted to do. Very expensive. All the vehicles are charged USB, and they're fully programmable. Do all kinds of cool stuff. But I'm cheap, so I'm looking for an easier way to do it. There's a system, if you go look on the internet, it's called MagnaRail. This is the, put it over here, I guess, maybe. I don't know if you can see it or not that way. Under the camera. MagnaRail. Let me go with it. I got on YouTube, I started looking for different things to work. Each box will contain a motor and 180 centimeters of track, which is about 5.5 feet. You can run, they have bicycles that actually people are pedaling, cars, boats, anything you can attach a magnet to, it'll mobilize it. If you go to YouTube, type in MagnaRail, and it's huge. Mainly like Australia, New Zealand, England, places like that. It'll deal about 15% grade. No problem whatsoever. Ours actually goes up to 12% grade, makes a turn, turns back, goes down a pigtail, comes back. But what comes in the kit, it looks like this. I ain't even opened it all the thing up yet. The speed controller can handle 2 motors. You put 2 of these kits together, adjust the speed. And they'll say, be sure if you order it, the US one. If you don't, you'll get the one, the little wonky plug to plug in the wall. So this is the US version of it. It's actually distributed out of Illinois. It takes about 7 days to get stuff. But the motors are these little gear driven motors. It's all DC, real simple. It works real well if you look on the deal with Adreno, however you put it. There's all kinds of cool stuff that you can do with the Adrenos. But the track, get this back on this camera, is right here. And in this track, this is the chain. And each chain you got to put magnets in. You just have to be sure to check your polarities. And it just runs through there. And it's fairly quiet. It's not very loud at all. But it'll transition up going hills and turns. You can do radiuses as small as this right here. That's just, it's not very big. These are turnaround loops. What a lot of guys do with these turnaround loops, like going into town, and it'd be like going under a bridge or into a tunnel. They put the turnarounds in there and they come right back out again. This particular kit is for the automotive style. It comes with 8 of these little plates you can put under any vehicle. Okay. The wheels don't even have to roll. They perform better if the wheels turn, but you can put anything on it. You'll see guys do boats. One of the ones I thought was pretty cute was a boat with skiers behind it and then a shark chasing it. There's a guy riding a bicycle. This is all Adreno control. You see the bicycle wreck, and all of a sudden you see the wreck on the side of the road, then an ambulance comes up, picks the guy up, and takes off. There's another scene that I saw.
Followed by a lawyer?
Pardon?
Followed by a lawyer?
Yeah. There's also one that the guys, they're doing open mining. And he's got dump trucks and bulldozers working down the bottom from winding down and coming up. It's coming up about probably 18 inches. It's graded about like that. It's pulling dump trucks, no problem. We've got like 10 dump trucks on this road. Running the 2-motor system just because of the length. So basically, 5.5 feet, 1 motor, but you can link them together. There's one gentleman, I think in New Zealand, his road runs the entire length of his layout, 40 feet. He's got traffic going back and forth on it. We'll need systems. You want to do some animation. It's reasonable. Let me tell you how much I spent because my wife's here.
That's what we were gonna ask, how much?
$200 for one system. Okay.
Russell, what, when you cover that up, like a road or something, what's the maximum depth?
Okay. This track gives you 2 options. You can either take a router, that's your deck, set the track down in it, so you get a level on top of that. And what you see everybody using is just using a polystyrene. Also, you can buy cobblestone, sheeting, and pretty much anything.
So you want to keep it as thin as possible.
Yeah, as thin as possible. Rare earth magnets are really strong, but you can. Mine's going to be elevated off of, which gives you these tabs to screw down. You know, I've got shims that'll go in here. That my road bed will be about day wide. I'm going to paint the bottom side of it and then put it down, but this track will go, I'll kind of do some oil staining where it's still a little slick, but I'll go back to my flat paint on the sides and make it look like asphalt. It's not prototypical, if you will, but it's a cool feature. So we'll have this on the mountain, we'll have this downtown. We'll also pull small trolley cars. Yeah, trolleys with no motors or anything in it, and pull trolleys right along as well. And you can also cross railroad tracks. So
They sell what looks like Kato Unitrack, and the chain fits underneath it.
Yes, sir.
And so you don't have to route your road bed via your plywood or anything.
Yeah, for the trolley cars.
Yeah, for a trolley, or even for regular cars. You build your scenery up.
Right.
To the sides of this, I just call it Unitrack.
Yeah.
And they've got it's like a little power station that the motor just covers over.
Right.
So you can decorate that to whatever you want.
Go to YouTube if you're interested in it.
Oh yeah, there's dozens of YouTubes.
Yeah, you'll spend hours and hours looking at it. There's one guy, the coolest one I saw, I think this guy's in New Zealand, is the Toyota plant. Cars come out of the plant, come around, they actually get loaded up in the autocar train cars. So you see what it does, it goes up, gets in the train cars with a structure there, and you don't see it going back downhill back underneath, back in the plant. And he's got like a 14 series on how he built it. All the troubles he solves a lot of people's problems. You can have like General Motors here and actually have cars being loaded on auto cars before they get hauled off. Very, very cool stuff.
Russell, thank you.
You're welcome. I'll leave this up there if y'all want to look at it.
Ready for the slide. I've got finally putting some switch machines in, tortoises, and I did just a few to get ready for the convention. But I made jigs up to drill, and just out of brass, and this has a 1/2-inch tubing. I made a new one because I couldn't find the one I usually use, and this was the original, and now I found it. But it didn't, I was using a 3/8-inch hole before. I found I didn't have enough room for the rod to throw, so I changed to 1/2-inch diameter holes. This one that says bad, if you make one and download the tortoise diagram, don't forget to turn off, well, adjust the paper size. So this one was a little undersized, that's why it says bad. I thought, what's going on? Why didn't that work? So anyway, that worked well for me. Can you bring up? Okay. I'm putting in lights, LEDs, and bezels on the layout. And to do that, I made a drilling jig. And so it tells me where to drill a 1-inch hole, 1 1/4 inch hole to put the bezel in, and also where to locate the LED. And I didn't have a long enough piece of brass for the layout, so I just laid it on an old jig that I had. And I think he's going to bring up some pictures, maybe. We're working on it. Well, he's bringing it up so you can see better. The bezels that I have, they were made out of, 1-inch couplings, and just put it in a lathe and turn it down, and makes a really nice bezel. You get 2 out of each one of these. And so I got 200 bezels for, I think, back 15 years ago when I made these. Cost me like $3 or $4, 200 of them. So they're just couplings for 1-inch pipe. He's still trying to get some pictures up there.
It's coming out over Zoom.
Okay. While he's getting it up, the bezels for a slide switch that attaches to the fascia, and you just stick your finger in. If you push the slide switch toward the wall, it throws the points toward the wall. Pull it the other way, it brings points out. Again, I made a jig to drill all the blocks. So, and then I have a jig that locates the holes in the fascia. So it's real easy to drill. You don't have to keep guessing where the block is, and the holes are already there. And then I added the previous layout. I put LEDs. My crew asked for that to show when the main was aligned. And now I'm using bi-directional ones, so I don't have to use 2 LEDs. And
Main screen, everybody else on Zoom is seeing this, but for some reason, this screen.
I gave him some pictures of the layout. I did decide to do one town and kind of get it semi-scenic, so I put in some static grass using World Grassmaster, and got ballasting done. And if you can get the pictures, I'll show you what those look like. Hopefully some of you will come over. Wednesday, I'm open for the layout SIG from 3 to 10 at night. So if you want to see what I'm up to, go on the SIG tour. See you there. Maybe if you get it, the pictures up, people can see what I'm doing. But thank you.
And there's a row of buildings up here. Who is that? Somebody show and tell?
Oh, yeah.
You want to talk about it, Stu?
Yeah. Hi. Wait a minute, everybody. You sit up front, you don't know.
For a second.
Okay, Stu, hold on a second.
You guys make me feel bad.
Hey, Stu, hold on one second.
Hold on
Dick.
just a minute.
Stop, I'm having some technical difficulties. Hold on. My screen is not letting, it's stuck on Stephen McGrath for whatever reason. It's not letting me get lost.
So we need to take a break?
No, we're good.
Okay.
Technical
All
problem.
right, I'm fixed.
Okay, Stu.
You guys make me feel bad. You've got electronics and fancy things and all I do is cut up styrene and glue it together. I came to visit, I don't know, it's been a year ago, I guess, and I came to a handful of meetings and walked around and was really impressed at everything. And finally I said, what can I do? Basically, I'm a structure guy because it doesn't move. There's no wires to it. There's no wheels, just structures. So they said, we've got this place over here that we want Hadley. Is it Hadley?
Handley.
Hadley.
Handley.
Handley.
Like the hand.
I go back to blazing saddles with Hadley and
All right.
Anyway, they said, get it blocking buildings. And so quick as a wink, I am roped into building this thing. Okay, so if I go over and I look at the block and this is how big it is. So I come back and I talk to Mike and I said, well, it's too big for the space that we have. So rather than make it in HO, let's scale it down to 1/100th. Okay, that looks a little better, and it gives us a little perspective too, as maybe it's a little bit further away. So do it up again. This is all computer drafting. Well, it's still a little bit too big. Okay, let's crunch it by 10%, but leave the original height. So not too bad. All right. Maybe we should leave out a business. I said, no, they don't want to leave out a business because if somebody comes by, they say, why did you leave out our business? All right, so anyway, there it is. This is now this is about 90% finished. When you came up here and he said, what can you do to make your model more realistic? I knew instantly where he's going, to the roof. Because when you look at a roof, and I've been to all these roofs with the drone, taking pictures of the piping and the air conditioning units that sit up there, and the stains that are on the roof, and leftover construction trash. There's all kinds of stuff on these roofs, and I'll get to it eventually, but this is what we're gonna have for convention, and thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Stu.
Stu.
I have something I'd like to say.
Yeah, Jim, go ahead.
On my layout, I have, among other things, when the lights go dim, there are moonlights to illuminate by moonlight. Those are provided by two different kinds of blue bulbs. One of them is a Christmas string that they don't make anymore. It's a middle base between the normal full-size base and the candelabra base. It's one about, figure your thumb maybe. Anyway, I dropped and broke one of my blue bulbs. I don't have any more. You can't buy them because they don't make them. I'm hoping that somebody might have an old string of Christmas lights that they're not using anymore that would have a blue bulb that I could get from you to replace that one, because I've had to completely move bulbs all around trying to get distribution of the blue light in the room because I can't buy a bulb anymore. So, did you say you have that?
I may have one.
Okay, I'll check with you at the break.
Is it C7? Is that what it is?
It might very well be. There's two different sizes of incandescent Christmas light bulbs, the smaller ones and then the bigger ones. And it's one of the bigger ones of the Christmas string that I used to go around the edge of my house, and so I got tired of climbing the ladder. Anyway, let me check with you and see, and if you can, I'd love to be able to come and get it. I'm terribly frustrated. Thank you.
Okay, so let's, David?
Yes, thank you.
Steel, you'll be next.
Thank you. Oh, Steele's got to come? Steele?
Go
Oh, yeah,
ahead, sir.
Steele, bring it on up. This won't take long. I had the fortune of traveling in Michigan in July. Weather was 75 to 85 every day. Sorry, loved it, came back, but I didn't bring it with me.
Go there in December and then talk about it.
Yeah, no, I won't go back in December. All right, so anyway, that 5 weeks I was up there, I took some modeling stuff with me. I always do. I managed to weather 180 freight cars. Honest, that's the exact number. But the other thing I did is that I went to the NMRA site, member menu, model railroad directory, called one guy off the model railroad directory, and ended up visiting 8 railroads, operated on 6. 4 of them said, hey, you're coming, we'll set up an op session for you.
There we go.
All right. So, and I had lunch twice, dinner once. One of the guys made homemade beer, and it was great. So all I can tell you is Huh?
What's his address?
Yeah, he's in Rolla, Missouri. I've done all.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, great guy. Yeah.
It's a long ways from Michigan.
Yeah, well, you know, I knew I was stopping. I know the guy anyway. So anyway, we had a great time. And I'm going to tell you something. If you're traveling, it's a great way to, you know, spend an evening. You got to set it up ahead of time, but it's really a great benefit from the website that, you know, you may not think about.
Great budget place right outside of Rolla on 44 too.
The Uranus place?
Yeah.
Oh, Uranus, yeah.
The Texas Northern is improving the roundhouse area, and I saw a couple of opportunities to do things that resembled the Katy. Well, you probably don't know that I'm a Katy fan. I don't talk about it much. So anyway, I recalled a photograph in Ray George's book on the Katy that showed a water tank very similar to this. This was silver, had a peaked roof on it. And the building on the top for the plumbing machinery for the water softener system and whatnot. This is an English kit which started out double O, and I reduced the pieces of it so that it would fit on top of the roof. A small amount of damage occurred on the way over here, and the access ladder is still in the box. But we also had, if this shows up, we also had a big shield on the side of the tank, so I was able to duplicate that. And the sound house is a fairly stock Walther's kit, which I use pan pastels to bring out the mortar detail. Painted the windows a different color, added the concrete pieces that go underneath the windows and stuff like that, and just basically weathered it out so that it looked pretty decent. And eventually, when it gets its final footprint, it'll be filled with sand. And one of the features I'm looking for is an HO scale dark cat to be using the sandbox for nature's purpose. So I'll leave it up here for you all to look at.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Okay, we have one more announcement. Yep.
Might have been transported.
The 611 Streamline Steam Engine, Norfolk and Western, is running excursions in Virginia. 4 runs a day over the week, or 4 runs a weekend, October and November. If you're interested, talk to me and I'll tell you when and how.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's take about we've gone pretty long. Let's take about a 10-minute break. We'll start at 11:30 with the clinic. And don't forget to feed the kitty back there for the coffee and donuts. Thank you very much.
Okay, here you can see how it mounts and the bezel coming through the fascia. And here's the phantom layout you couldn't see before. I'm probably getting some scenery done. My labels aren't quite as fancy. I did make labels showing the industries up on the valence. And then down below, I have a piece of Velcro I put wide now, wherever you need to put the throttle. This light indicates the crossover is thrown. The light goes out if the crossover is normal. And then I put in some static grass.
Hey, Gary, hold on a second. Hey, guys, we got a little presentation going on up here. Could you kind of move to the meeting room, please, and keep your voices down? Go ahead, Gary.
So I tried to label everything, and I have east and west also. And for the main line, I put bicolor LEDs to show, to allow me for the main. And I decided not to do a photo background. I did a 35-foot strip for Roberta using Photoshop. And I spent 2 days, and I decided it was one of the easier backgrounds to do. And I thought, I can't really do it this way. It takes too much time. I'd rather paint it. So I'm painting the background instead.
Using a bicolor LED?
Yes.
Red, green?
Yeah, by color, for the main.
Yeah, I did that on mine
Red,
too,
green.
and then I had a friend of mine came over to the house and goes, so how do I tell which way it's thrown? I said, well, red's the virgin, green's the main. He goes, I'm red, green colorblind. How do I tell which way it's thrown?
Oh.
So I started wiring 2 lights now for everything because of that.
Oh, well, I had 2 lights before, and so I had the red and gray. They still have the same problem, except look on
You can tell which
side's
one's lit at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess your placement could be, put the green on top and the red on the bottom.
Or vice versa,
Ask your neighbor.
yeah. Look at the points. That's
Look
what
at
I
the
always
points.
tell them. Yeah.
So anyway, that's the last scene. I've got the ballasting done. So I'm hoping some people will be able to visit. Like I say, I'll be open from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock on Wednesday night at the convention. It's part of the LD Safe Tour. Thank you.
Okay, very good, Gary. Thank you very much.
Unplug this one.
Okay, we're going to move into our clinic now. So Jim Ogden's going to put on a clinic on lumber and paper operations in Texas and Arkansas and East Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana. How could I forget Louisiana?
Our producer back there. Oh, I'm fine. No, I'm not. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the presentation I'm going to be doing. I'm Jim Ogden. I grew up in a little place in northeastern Louisiana, very close to a paper mill in Bastrop, Louisiana. My family had a farm, and I always looked on the farm. And my sorries could be friends who couldn't find work, usually wound up working in the wood pile at International Paper in Bastrop, Louisiana, which was kind of a world unto itself. And it turns out we had a lot of paper and pulp operations in northern Louisiana, East Texas, parts of Oklahoma, and Arkansas. Now, I just figured that these pulpwood rat cars were probably everywhere until I was in Little Rock with a very good friend who is in the Amarillo Club, Jerry Michaels, and he had never seen pulpwood cars before, pulpwood trains. So I said, well, maybe people don't really understand what this little industry is all about. This, I believe, is Hodge, Louisiana, and here you have the homemade pulpwood rat cars. Now, I'm going to go through this very quickly. I'm going to make this PowerPoint available online. If you'd like to look over it, get a copy. I don't want everybody to be late going to the layout course. Anyway, not everything is up to being used as lumber. This is Faraday, Louisiana. It's hard to realize, but they actually had a brick with tile roof station in this town at one time, pulled it down because of tax liability and put up a tent building. And this, of course, was not one of my photographs. This is actually from Michael Palmieri. Now, this is where you had a lot of the, as you look over here, this is where we had all sorts of short-leaf and loblolly pine, which was used in pulp and paper. And, of course, the brown is loblolly and short-leaf all over here in East Texas. And short-leaf pine, of course, we also have longleaf, which is down here in East Texas and southern Louisiana. That's actually from a paper industry publication. Turns out hardwoods and softwoods are very different. I'm not going to get into this. I do teach this at the university. Y'all don't need that kind of detail. Hardwoods is very, very useful for furniture. Oak, hickory, pecan, not all is going to be worthy of being used for furniture. You sometimes do put that into the mix when you do make paper. Now, this is at Pineville, Louisiana. I believe that's Louisiana College behind it. And this is actually where there's a road going, there's actually a railroad crossing here and an overpass. And I can remember seeing this scene. We had some property down around a place called Center Point, Louisiana, which is basically a bunch of trees. But this is kind of what you would see in that little train. Lots of pine trees just about everywhere. This is some kind of interesting picture. I got this a couple of years ago. This is Dodge, Texas. There is a Dodge, Texas. That's a typical IGN station there. Here we have these General Steel casting cars. Now, these were allowed to roam all over the place. They would be allowed in interchange. I actually knew someone who was from there, actually knew where that general store was. That station obviously is long gone, but it's very similar to the one that's in Magnolia. These were General Steel castings kits that many railroads assembled. You saw them on the Frisco, GM&O, you saw them on Santa Fe, on Cotton Belt, on SP. What a person would do is they'd wind up getting a truckload of pulpwood, and they would actually have this delivered to a team track somewhere, and they'd wind up getting all their kinfolks and would load it onto one of these rack cars. You would have had a contract with a broker to deliver them to a paper mill somewhere. Pulpwood didn't tend to move over about 100 miles anyway, but of course these could be used in interchange. You could actually have the mill, say, on the Santa Fe, or in East Texas, you could have something on the KCS. That could actually travel. A lot of the home-built cars, you just didn't tend to do that. Now look at the detail here. Propane tank. And of course there you got different kinds of materials around there. And of course, again, you've got the well-maintained rail line through this. These cars are available. I know in HO and N, I had a friend tell me these are also available in O. Now, I'm not going to really go into a lot of detail here. I was talking with David a little bit earlier about this. You get the pine, you can remove the bark from them and go through all these kind of chemical refining processes. Eventually, you'll get paper, and there are all sorts of different processes. I'm not going to get too wonkish with these kind of processes here since we are kind of strapped for time. Now, Walthers has had this Superior Paper Mill kit. This actually looks more like a warehouse. There's a lot more stuff that you really need to do an effective paper mill. If you want to build a paper mill and have it look like what I think a paper mill should look like, you need to be an N or Z scale. This would be kind of an edge of the layout model. Of course, I'd want to have these digester type tanks all around there. I do have this kit. I haven't assembled it yet. When I start building the layout, I will have it assembled. Now, this is Bastrop, Louisiana, named after the same impresario that gave us Bastrop, Texas. You had a guy who they wanted to have some great big honorary thing, find his descendants, and this big thing in Bastrop, Louisiana. And they got some tracing around, found out the guy was kind of like a much more perverse version of, say, Colonel Tom Parker, who was Elvis's manager, okay? This guy stole a whole bunch of money as a tax collector in the Netherlands, and since you had some common royalty in Spain and in the Netherlands, he came to the Spanish colonies and kind of came up with this whole great big idea that he was a very famous baron in Bastrop, Texas. It's named after him. He also was in charge of the property that later became used. But this is typical of the motive power that you get. This is the old 10 building they had there. This is about 300 feet from the wood yard, which, again, the wood yard is where they dumped all the pulp wood. And it was a place you really didn't want to work for reasons I never understood, even in summer. And yes, 1980, we had 108-degree weather. They had 55-gallon drums with fires going 24/7 in there. And you ask them, why do you have fires in this kind of weather? And they said, keep the lions and demons away. I never quite figured that one out. Types of mills. There's a kraft paper mill. Mostly produces unbleached paper, cardboard boxes. Bastrop, Louisiana actually had two paper mills. One that made primarily newsprint and nice papers, and the other made mostly cardboard. This is another schematic here about what you do. I'm going to make this available if you want to see what a paper mill is all about. This gets too wonkish here, but you have to have all these materials coming in. Now, if you want to model something, I'd like to do a mill that actually is not using the pulp that's produced someplace else. I want to have something with all these different kind of products, kind of a paper mill that you're dealing with all these different kinds of materials, interesting things coming in, coming out. Now, so you can actually have kraft paper mill for unbleached paper. Move over here, consumer paper products, newsprint, and you want to bleach them or coat them to make them slick. So you've got some other kind of cars that are going to come out. An integrated mill is what I think is really probably more fun to model because you've got a pulp mill and a paper mill. Now the pulp mill just process the pulp that's shipped to a mill elsewhere. that doesn't really have to me the operational enjoyment of the really strange cars that are coming in and out. All right, at one time, loading pulpwood was quite a chore, and I got this off a historical site here. This, of course, is the southern boxcar behind this mop boxcar. This is someplace in East Texas. Somebody went ahead and got in touch with the station agent. I need a rail car to load some pulpwood in. Well, the problem was he wasn't explicit. He did not say, I need a pulpwood car. He said, get me a rail car. This is what was delivered, okay? You got to let them know what you want here. So anyway, this person probably has been out and gotten a number of pickup trucks or small trucks with pulpwood. This is at a team track somewhere. And of course, he probably went out and said, hey, you guys want to help me unload, load some wood in a boxcar? Sure, we'll go, okay? And they found out they got more work than they know what to do with it. Now, it's a lot easier if you have the right supervisor. This guy was also in these things, in these shots, probably telling him, all right, you move this here, you move this. Now, I always say behind every successful man is a successful woman. Behind every job that's done, you got to have your supervisor tell you what you do and tell you what you're doing wrong. More work here, okay? This is beat up pickup truck. This probably is a Santa Fe boxcar here. Look at the way the roof has been raised. And of course, again, loading them down with pulpwood. Not a fun job here, okay? There's the supervisor here telling these guys what to do. If you want to model this in HO, you need to have somebody, there he is with his Panama hat, you know. I don't see a stubby little cigar there, but you always got to have your supervisor around to make sure that the other guys are not going for it. So Southern Pines, actually a number of these things, mostly loblolly now, that's a very fast growing pine, but you've got some slash pine, short leaf and long leaf. You just cut it down and put it in the mix there. And of course, hardwood, good for newsprint, softwood for higher-end paper, but you do sometimes put some hardwood in the mix. And International Paper in Bastrop, Louisiana will grind these logs with chips. Now this is Nashville, Arkansas. This is, there's a Nashville, Arkansas, just like Nashville, Tennessee. It's not my shot there. This Tom Sink's shot here. This is a later version of pulpwood car. Now the thing is, in these little small towns, you always park your cars very, very, very close to the railroad tracks in hopes that something will fall in your car and you can actually say, this was actually a high-end Cadillac, and please give me a check for this. Now, they did have pulpwood rack cars back in the world of steam. This is Mod 2317, which if you want to build a model of it, supposedly that's almost identical to the PFM Western Pacific and Rio Grande steam locomotives that have much later valve gear. But again, this is a pulpwood rack car, but this shows the kind of steam that you have. This was on the Prescott Northwestern in Arkansas. Here we have some pulpwood rack cars. These are home-built cars. This is a rail line that was on the Missouri Pacific. It's southwestern Arkansas, and that was its kind of only connection there. Which here we have this is out of a book that I almost read it so much that I knocked the pages out as a child. It was about little short line operations in Arkansas, and Tennessee, and Louisiana, and these sorts of things. This was actually scanned from that textbook. This is, if you ever had one of the Athearn pulpwood cars, I don't know why it is, but Athearn, they would find a drawing of one car in one of the publications. Figured everyone was that way. So there actually is a prototype for the Athearn car, believe it or not. This was a series relatively small there in Little Rock, Arkansas. And this is Prescott and Northwestern number 7.
This is a cut down boxcar?
Yeah, actually it's the ends of a boxcar and the center sill of a boxcar and new sides. And this little thing over here is something they fabricated at North Little Rock. In the end, actually, you can see that it came from a boxcar. After you had a picture of the end on it, I'll show you what that looked like in a minute. Westfield actually has the appropriate ends.
Jim, was this a modified boxcar to start with?
Yes, it was the center sill of a 40-foot boxcar, or then center sill of a 36-foot boxcar. Mike, for whatever reason, ordered a large number of 36-foot boxcars, and we realized, why do we do this? It's too small for what we're using now. Some were rebuilt into Eagle merchandise cars. Some gave up their center sills for cabooses. These center sills were pretty much indestructible. So this used those reconfigured, rehabilitated center sills. and then it had some boxcar ends that were.
So the side panels on each side were a stiffener that hold that?
More or less, they pretty much copied they pretty much were a copy of what the profile of the center sill was. That's the Prescott Northwestern back in the 80s, and these 2 years ago were up for sale and nobody would buy them across the friction type bearings on these things. These were still around. In fact, these things were still around 5 years ago, 70 tonners. And of course, here's another shot here, which is kind of interesting, those wood chip cars. Now, this is what I was talking about earlier. This is the wobbly, bobbly turnover and stop in East Texas, Waco, Beaumont, Trinity, and Sabine, late 40s. And of course, that's refurbished dreadnought in there. This is that car we're talking about. You got a center cell that pretty much copied that. And in reality, each one of these cars is a little bit different. And of course, these people are probably very proud to have their pictures taken. And of course, you see these kind of things all over East Texas back in the day. Now, this is Malvern, Arkansas, with all the wood chip cars. There's some wood rack cars there. This is kind of the way I remember Malvern when I was a kid growing up. Up until last week, they had a narrow gauge roundhouse that was still there that got knocked down by a direct hit from a tornado a couple months ago. That they hauled the bricks off. But this is Malvern, Arkansas. It is a stop on the Texas even today. Turns out the railroads had kind of a handshake agreement with paper companies that we will haul wood chips and pulpwood at a loss, provided we get to be the shipper for all the finished products. And that was just the understanding. We have something, we're making absolutely no money. We're kind of doing this out of the goodness of our little hearts if you let us be the originating shipper for the finished paper products. And then that model kind of fell apart in the late 80s with, they said, oh, we're using restraint of trade. We have to put it on trucks. This is a mop wood chip car made from a triple hopper. Missouri Pacific and a number of railroads had coal operations in Indiana and Illinois. The problem with southern Indiana and southern Illinois coal is it has a very high amount of sulfur, and it just was not economical to sell it because of the problems with acid rain. The coal they're getting out of the Dakotas is low sulfur coal, and you don't have to go through all the engineering hoops to actually get rid of the sulfur. But you saw these things all over the place. Bowser does make that available if you want that. This is another shot that I took there of one of these wood chip cars. The Rock Island had box cars, wood single sheet outside braced box cars. They just took the roof off all over Arkansas. This is Huttig, Arkansas, and Louisiana, Missouri. And here we see a facility that's actually putting wood chips in these cars. And this was one of their engines that pretty much lived out in Huttig. And this is not one of my shots. This is one I actually got off of railpictures.com. Frisco, got to have a little bit of Frisco involved. Always left the Frisco. This is their version of a wood chip car. This would actually be fairly easy to model, and now that they're making archer rivets again. But this is the Frisco version. Cars this time have their sides and ends upward. Wood chips don't weigh that much, obviously. This is one of Mike Conrad, a very individual. One of his shots in Springfield. He was actually a chemistry professor at a university in Memphis, and then wound up retiring into Western Arkansas, and was there and passed away a couple of years ago. But he photographed all sorts of stuff in Frisco. Now, KCS also had these homemade chip cars. Again, everybody bought all these triple hoppers, and then turns out they were being used in places where coal was just considered dirty coal, and everybody started going with Powder River Basin coal. So if you want a Bowser model, dirty little secret, you probably need to sand off that little beam on top here. But that's the Bowser model, also replace the brake wheel. These are some purpose-built Frisco chip cars, another Mike Conrad photo. All right, Springfield. Yeah, This is one of the 50-foot cars. Frisco had 40-foot and 50-foot cars. These were built from the General Steel casting, solid underframe side kit that you could actually get. These were, painted yellow. Earliest ones from the 40-foot were freight car red. This is one of the old General Steel castings, pulpwood cars. The deck actually slants down. And again, this deck, this center sill, that's all a single cast. These things are pretty indestructible. These are some up in Hope, Arkansas. Interesting place there. And a little tip off, you're looking at a 50-foot car, you have that type of end bulkhead. If you look at a 40-foot car, it's going to be shorter, and you have pretty much a different arrangement here with the way you can actually see where the deck is slanted. This is a KCS car. Now this is Henry O'Connor's shot of a cotton belt car. They actually put extensions on these things to where they can haul more pulpwood. This is pine bluff. And of course, very similar to Texas and New Orleans cars. That's been relettered to ESP. Now, this is a cotton belt car, which I got an old U.S. Hobbies brass car. Painted it, it had kind of decal bash because nobody had the decals on here. And Charles Goodrich, before he got the narrow gauge disease, was modeling a whole bunch of cotton belt stuff. And his thing used to go out, he would go out after Christmas and find where people in Shreveport would abandon Christmas trees. And he'd take it in and he'd chop these things off and make wood loads. But it turns out that if you buy the Atlas plastic car, the wood load is just horrific. It's terrible, it's out of scale. This was someone's Christmas tree, probably about 1975, okay? And I was able to buy these things. And of course, Charles says his wife thought he was not exactly all there going out and getting people to discard Christmas trees. Now, this is a Nelson Moyer model of a cotton belt home built car. This was made from USRA flat car, 40-foot. I put this in for Mike Mackey, who's not with us today, just to show what you can do here. I've got one of the Sunshine kits. I've got a tissue plastic model, which is a Eastern Roads pulpwood car, pulpwood rack, and use that as a pattern to do that, because I mean these were all over the place. Now Nelson's wood load is really, really, really nice compared to what Charles, yeah, he actually saw what they really look like. This is one of my models that I made of a TP car. This was built from a series of box cars. And what I liked about this was from a Sunshine kit. What I liked about these was the fact that Martin Lawson actually had vacuum formed ends. You can actually see the rib. And of course, I went ahead and painted the inside freight car red or rust red because I figured, they weren't that, they didn't always go to the problem of painting the inside of gondolas or these pulpwood rack cars. These homemade cars usually didn't go offline too much. I've got a couple of these kits. This, of course, is showing what I remember as a kid there. And I learned out very quickly, if you hang around railroads, stay away from the tracks because these things will fall off. And, of course, that's one of the 50-foot cars. Again, if you look over here, that's round. These have a different range, but you can actually get these from General Steel Casters. General Steel Casters was located in Granite City, Illinois, which is St. Louis area. They supplied the single piece cast under frames of a lot of steam locomotives. And this is one of the MOP GSE cars that was built in 1957. This is probably look at that, it's about 30 years later. And of course, I want to show it. It's a slanted deck and actually has places for water to drain. Now, not all bulkhead flats were carrying pulpwood, and of course, this is here we see a bunch of the makings of telephone poles. This is actually a pulpwood rack car that they actually loaded down pieces. And this is the Atlas St. Louis Brownsville in New Mexico. That's a Mopac subsidiary pulpwood car. I really don't like those loads too much. Now, out in California, they used a lot of extended height gondolas for wood chip cars. This one they actually drew in Northern. This second-hand car they bought. ED&N, which is no longer with us, Fordyce and Princeton still operates, but here you see it's using the cotton belt paint scheme, but they've already started using the red or green. Now, there are other kind of cars that come in and out of paper mill. Kaolin, that's clay from Georgia, often used to make the pages slick. Today, they use things like calcium carbonate. You put that in a covered hopper. In some cases, you use another compound, titanium dioxide. This is a modern pressure differential hopper car. I think this is an HO car. I don't have one, it's a little modern for my area here. This is showing Georgia Kaolin. This is a tank car pulling in the kaolin slur to use on paper. You see that at paper mill, that's what they're carrying. I remember this stuff being carried in covered hopper. This is a simple Georgia. This is Central Georgia Pullman Standard car, which I've seen in multiple scales there. I remember seeing these things all the time, loaded down with bulk kaolin. Also, I used to hear stories about, I think it's a monstrosity when this stuff gets stuck in a hopper. They used to load this stuff in boxcars. This is, of course, a Georgia Railroad boxcar. That's the tissue model. Now, caustic soda comes in tank cars, and of course, if you've ever been around, you know, I got to think about tank cars. This is not an all-black car, it's black and orange. We got a little problem with the black and white here, but I just pulled something off the Tangent's website here. Okay, that's hydrogen, that's caustic soda or sodium hydroxide. Whitening agents, Columbia Chemicals. I didn't believe these things were in this colorful paint scheme until I actually found some pictures a while back. I said, well, they never used that. Well, no. A lot of stuff came out of Lake Charles, Louisiana. And of course, these have been available, I think, at HO&M for, I think, Broadway Limited. Now, if you've ever been at HO, there's a requirement that you must have one of the Athens chemical tank cars in Michigan Alkaline, which is actually a liquefied petroleum gas car. It's oversized for this, but of course the wind-up chlorine that I think I still got one in a crate somewhere. And of course today they're using titanium dioxide for writing and paper rather than chlorine. You know, if you wind up having a chlorine tank car derail, it's kind of a problem. Obviously, sodium sulfate's often used. Again, you got all these. This would be carried in covered hoppers. This is a Southern car that actually is loaded down with stuff at a paper mill, which I assume was probably sodium sulfate. I just threw that in this grab shot to show that Illinois Central car here. Now, of course, eventually you got to get the stuff out of. These were actually cars that I caught being loaded down with newsprint, hauling it out of there. They like a car with wide doors. The wider, the better. Blood doors were at premium as well. Again, you don't want to wind up having your commodity damaged. These were, of course, a cushion underframes as well. There's a car with a DF loader, loading devices. If you don't want the newspaper to get beat up. There's another car that was in Monroe, Louisiana. It was supposed to be loaded down with paper and assigned to one of International Paper's mill. This, of course, showing one of my. I always loved the Frisco stuff anyway. Now, back in the 70s, I remember getting one of these little wood kits from Quality Craft. Pullman Standard came up with an idea for an all-door boxcar. I remember putting this together as a kid and not understanding you needed to weight the inside on it. There's a wood kit. Turns out they actually had a dolly inside there. And these were the doors would actually move out to the ends there. I had no idea that the mill and cross in Arkansas was where these things lived. Otherwise, I would have went out of my way to take pictures of them. But of course, here's the doors. It's really wide opening, and then you got a dolly inside there that you load the stuff and then move to the side and load other stuff there. This is from there weren't that many of these things made. And this is an all-door boxcar from Ashley Drew in Northern. This is not my shot, but it was loaded down with, would have been loaded down with paper products. Now, byproducts and waste. The craft process of making tape produces turpentine. You got to ship that out in tank cars. There is and was a market for turpentine. I can remember in Kansas, you used to see these railroad gondolas with stumps in it. I said, what are they holding those stumps for if they were extracting turpentine? A lot of plants would burn their waste products to produce steam and electricity. The paper mill in Bastrop, Louisiana had its own electrical plant where they, and of course, they would pump steam all over the place to drive turbines. Now, this was a little thing, I was a kid, this was our local behind a GP18. It picked up a whole bunch of pulpwood racks there in Bastrop, took it to Constance, Louisiana. It was headed north, probably toward Pine Bluff. And this was the end here, which was one of those we always joke, you call these things party barge cabooses. Now, I know I went through this really quickly because I know we've got a layout tour. Does anybody have any questions or any comments or anything I can kind of answer for you? Pardon?
Can you do it over again? Yeah. Reminiscing on all the places you went.
But, pardon? But anyway, you know, have you ever been in East Texas or Western Louisiana, South Arkansas, and you're there in the 1980s? Yeah, these things were all over the place. And a lot of people said, well, it's pulpwood. For some reason, we didn't take a lot of pictures of these things. I mean, we wanted things that was really, we wanted to take pictures of things that were exciting. I can remember quite well back in the day taking pictures of you know, I couldn't afford the film, so first you got the engines and then you got the caboose. And if you saw something really bizarre in the middle of the end, you took a picture of it. But it was, you know, a lot of the, you know, the stuff we always considered the pulpwood and wood chips. Well, these things are as common as cornflakes. No need to pay any attention to that. And that went away almost as quickly as the cabooses did.
That caboose you had there on the end?
Yes.
There are two of those that set in Pryor, Oklahoma. You're coming up 69 out of Muskogee. But right before you get into Pryor, there's a Mid-America facility in there. And there's a little 2 or 3 track helper station and stuff there. And they've got 2 of those little cabooses. They use them in service up there every day.
Well, I was surprised. I was actually back at my parents' place and went out to our farm and said, "Oh, here's something interesting. We had a fairly clean. This was not last November before November 2022. Speed Leonard Southern Pacific GP60 on a local." And you see the little, very discreet UP patch out of the number, had one of those cabooses on the end. I said, "Is that a shoving platform? Or there's somebody riding in it?" And that was the last. So I saw a caboose on a local, you know, near Monroe, Louisiana, in 2022. I said, "Okay," and I said, and miraculously, I actually had my camera with me.
Are they still using the caboose going down to A&M on 6? They run backwards towards A&M. There is a caboose on the end. Down the SP tracks. You follow 6 on. Huh?
That's the UP track right by
the one that runs along. Well, before you get into Herman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they always ran as.
Yeah, I'd have to ask Linda Rubach or some of my friends down there about what's. Yes.
You know, where was the pulpwood cut down to that size? Was it cut in the field?
I think it was cut in the field. I mean, at least that's what they were doing when I was a kid. That actually get these people out with chainsaws and chop it down, throw it in the back of the truck, and take it in. And of course, what they're doing once they started shipping stuff in 18-wheelers, they were no longer chopping it down in those little, you know, the sizes that we saw there that were just going to the back of the pickup. It was kind of interesting to be there. I mean, I remember the job of last resort when I was in high school was working at the wood yard at International Paper in Bastrop, Louisiana. And you would have some trucks coming in, but you'd have a lot of rail cars coming in. They were those short little links, and I forget how many feet it is. But I think that was actually being done out in the field and then loaded. And I have some pictures I have of trucks being loaded with clamshell kind of things and taken into the wood yards and then unloaded and all these kind of things.
Well, there was a plant when I worked in International Paper, was in Georgetown, South Carolina. And they had a pulp plant tools. And we got to watch it coming off the barges, off the wood off the barges onto the yard. Then we watched them put them in the debarker and then the chipper down inside. And they had blades. They designed a grab iron that would just grab the blades. They're changing them out all the time, and I mean, that blade was that long.
Oh, I can
Every
believe
bit
it.
of that thick. But it was nice to see when they went in there, went into the bleacher, and they used pulp for firing up their furnaces to bleach it out and everything. And the thing was a mile long drying furnace.
Oh, I can believe
I
that.
mean, it just stuff like this.
That's the reason if you want to model it, you probably ought to do it in N scale, because, I mean, it's just, it's overwhelming, and people do not understand how big these things are.
Now, is Bastrop the one right here at Texas, Louisiana border?
No, that's up there north of Monroe, going out, between Monroe and
What was the
Cross.
one that was right on Texas, Louisiana border?
Well, you actually had one in Mansfield, Louisiana. Then you had another one in, you had another plant, had several plants out there. You had one in Atlanta, Texas. IP had mills, I think, in East Texas as well. And then you had some down around the Ritter, that area, Manning.
They smell good, didn't they?
It smells like money.
Yeah.
There was one north of Shreveport we passed going north, and when the wind was from the north, we could smell it in Shreveport. And we knew it.
It was there on the KCS. I know the one you were talking about.
They had a little steam engine, I think it was a Mogul, but it may have been a 262.
In fact, I think T. Ballrout has pictures of that being operated too.
Jim, thank you very much.
Well, I
appreciate it.
Remember, Joe, in your prayers here.
Okay, and next month's meeting, we're going to have a Zoom meeting with.
Yeah, we got a gentleman who's actually doing on loads, those loads. You're going to have a little bit of that on. He's also doing this at the National Convention. But the idea is you wind up getting the, all of us have flat cars and gondolas, and of course it's kind of boring unless you put a load in them. There's so many interesting things to do. He's also had some, if you read the bulletin, you know, you actually see some little articles about that. But just kind of neat what you can do to make it look like the inside of your cars are actually hauling stuff.
So it'll be a very interesting Zoom meeting. Okay, Jim, thanks again for your presentation. It was very interesting. Okay, this month's layout tour is at Mike Mackey's house. So I have addresses here for those who don't know how to get there. And with that, I think that concludes our meeting. Everybody grab a chair and please put it up.
Yes, thank you.
Books are still for sale.
Yeah, we got books still for sale too if you're interested.
Except for the cable, everything else is free.